Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Charbonneau. I'm the associate publisher for SpinSheet Magazine. And next to me, by the way, Molly Winans, our editor-in-chief. Hey, Molly.
Hey, Sharp. How are you? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. How are things?
Well, it's finally chilly enough for me to wear my Mount Gay jacket. Remember last time we had this program? It was still kind of hot and muggy. Like, I can't put that thing on yet because it's warm. It's nice and toasty. I love it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Red's your color.
Yeah, it's totally my color. Yeah, which I kind of needed some red because I'm dragging a little bit today. This cold weather is like, I'm not ready.
I mean, I like it. You can have a fire in your backyard. It kind of brings in, the season, I guess. But you're right. It kind of drags you down when it first starts.
Yeah, but I don't know about you, but if there's a little backyard fire tonight, I'm taking out my long underwear. It's cold.
Come on over.
Cold out there.
It is. It is. Well, before we get started, I want to do my job here. Big thanks to Mount Gay Rum for sponsoring this episode of the SpinSheet Happy Hour. If you are thirsty and need a libation, go get some Mount Gay Rum. Having said that, Molly, what are we doing tonight?
Well, we've been lucky. We've met some of these YouTube vloggers, and tonight we're going to interview these guys from MJ Sailing, and we're going to learn about their catamaran build. And it's funny when I hear about something like that, I think, oh, new sailors building a catamaran. And then I find out, oh, these guys are not new sailors. They're super experienced cruisers. So I want to talk to them about their adventures. I want to talk to them about their catamaran build, why they're crazy enough to do something like that, and how it's going. And they're right here in Chesapeake Country too. So they actually have an internet connection there. They're at a marina right around the other side of the bridge, and nice. I'm psyched to talk to them about stuff. But I am having a drink. What are you drinking over there?
Geez, I kind of joined a little bit early, and I'm almost empty. But a Mount Gay and ginger. What do you got?
I know, it looks like a beer, and you're thinking, Molly's drinking beer.
You're drinking beer?
What have you done with Molly Winans? No, this is actually a cider. I was going to drink a Mount Gay drink, and I realized I have absolutely nothing in my house to mix Mount Gay with.
You don't need to mix it. It's so smooth. No mix required.
I like mixing things with ice cubes. You know me. But anyway, I happen to have a cider on hand. So cheers.
Excellent.
Cheers. Happy Friday. I can hear your dog there.
There we go. All right. Well, let's bring these guys on.
All right, cool. Let's do it.
And I'm going to mute myself because my dog is barking.
Yeah. Hey.
Hi, guys.
Happy Friday.
Hey, happy Friday. Welcome to SpinSheet Happy Hour.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was going to say welcome back, but you've never actually been on SpinSheet Happy Hour before. We had a chance to interview you last year at some point. We had some technical difficulties, and we just sort of scrapped. So we're like, all right, let's revisit.
It was much more interesting now than it was last year.
Yeah, last year I was just waiting. Now we're actually doing something.
Yeah, well, that's good. His doing something is we like to have people on the program who are doing stuff.
Yeah, that helps things go by. The hour go by a little bit easier.
That's right. So Sharp, I think, is going to go behind the scenes to be man behind the curtain and tend to his little dog who's making noise tonight.
Yes. We'll see you a little bit later in the green room.
Wonderful. Sounds good.
So the way this works, I didn't address my questions to Matt specifically or Jessica specifically. I'm going to let you guys sort of pick and choose who answers what questions. So if one of you is being a monopolizer, I'll jump on in. But other than that,
okay, just point.
You guys have done some interviews at this point, so I figured you'll have a system to answer it, or maybe the answers will come naturally. But as I said before, I really didn't have that much background on you guys, and I'd interviewed so many people that I went through your videos and stuff and thought, oh, that's right, those guys are really experienced. And so let's start at the beginning. If you guys, maybe each of you can tell us a little how you came to sailing, and then sort of how you came to this point. I know you could probably fill 50 minutes with that, but let's just
probably could.
Maybe you can give us a little summary of how you got to sailing, how you got to.
I'll set a short little scene. So we got married in 2004 and bought a house in the suburbs. And we realized after a few years that even like beautiful summer days, we would just find ourselves inside on the weekends, watching Netflix.
This was before Netflix streaming, when they actually had DVDs.
They sent you the
mail,
DVDs.
so we're dating ourselves.
And so it kind of got to the point where it's like, we need to make a change. We need to get ourselves out and moving. And coming from Michigan, like northern Michigan, Traverse City is absolutely a beautiful area. So we almost thought about like getting a cabin or building something up there, but just the travel time, that wasn't going to work out. So 45 minutes from us was Muskegon on Lake Michigan, beautiful lakeshore. So we thought, why not try and get ourselves
It's a beautiful place. I've been to Muskegon. It's lovely.
It's that whole coastline is absolutely gorgeous, but everybody knows that. So of course, just like anywhere, the real estate is ridiculous price. So the way for us to be able to have lakefront real estate was to get a boat and have it on a mooring or in a marina.
And so we had actually never been sailing before. Our families grew up as power boaters. We did the water skiing, the tubing. So it was brand new to us. We weren't sure if we would like it. We took one sailing lesson, and then the next day we purchased a 24-foot Hunter.
Yeah. So yeah, we dove right in.
Yeah, cool. I'd like to hear a story like that. Tell us about your cruising before you got to this point, or before you even thought about a catamaran.
Yeah, it was basically, we left Michigan. We went through up and over the top through the Erie Canal, down the coast through the Caribbean, and
yeah, we had done a season in the Caribbean, and we were about to head to the Mediterranean. We got to the Azores, and we weren't planning to do a North Atlantic loop, but when we were waiting for a good weather window to get over to Lisbon, Matt was talking to all of these sailors that were just coming down from all of these Arctic or northern climates, and thought, you know what, that's what I want to do. So we purchased a boat sight unseen in Florida, and we thought, well, okay, we need to get back there. So then we, with the seasons, went down to Madeira and the Canary Islands, jumped over to the Virgin Islands, kind of hung out there for a bit before sailing back to Florida. Did a 2.5-year refit on our aluminum boat with the goal that we're going to take it to the Arctic, which was the whole reason that we bought it, way over in the Azores. So then we got it all fixed up, brought it down to the Caribbean kind of for a few months shakedown, and then took that back to the Azores and fell in love with those islands. Ended up wintering over there, even though we were supposed to be in England. But eventually in the spring, we did do Ireland, Scotland through the Caledonia Canal. We got to spend Matt's birthday on Loch Ness.
Right in front of Loch Ness Castle, one of the most incredible birthday spots ever. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And
then in early July, we did make the jump over to Norway, still with the goal to get up to the Arctic Circle. So we rushed ourselves up there, about 1,200 miles of coastline, and spent about a week or so in the Lofoten Islands, which was absolutely worth the trip. But because of seasons and visas, we had to then head back down south, where we had a berth waiting for us in the south coast of England, where we planned to then go into the Mediterranean the following summer. But lockdowns happened, so we decided that we'll sell the boat.
We were actually going to do the Baltic region the next year, and COVID hit, and basically our plans got accelerated. So it was time to stop, take a time out, and build a new boat, and that's where we're at now.
Yeah, well, COVID radically changed everybody's plans. I don't know about you. Did you have any friends who got stuck in paradise?
Well, actually, our friends Bill and Grace of Calico's Guys, I believe you talked to, they were in the Ragged Islands, and they ended up anchored next to Delos. And then we've since met kind of like the Ragged Islands group. And so I think they all had their own little paradise going there.
Yeah. Well, I heard some stories of just COVID stories of people who got stuck in places where it sounds great, but we actually can't get out, and or get to other places, and supplies being cut off, and it wasn't paradise for some. So I'm glad that some people made the most of it. So
yeah, we were in the Canary Islands. We had flown down there, and we got the last flight out actually back to the UK, and then Spain did a hard lockdown, and so we got extremely lucky. Otherwise, we would have been there for 3 months, I think. Staying at an Airbnb for 3 months would have been a little tough.
Yeah. Well, and expensive, right?
Oh, very expensive.
Not exactly in your plan.
Yeah.
So was Am I remembering correctly that before this aluminum boat, there was a tartan?
Saber, actually.
A Saber, a 34-footer, right?
Yes, I won't fault you for that one. Tartan's a great boat too, so
Yeah.
not too bad.
But it was the Saber 34 Targa.
It was a Targa model of the 34.
Nice. Okay. And so you're no strangers to refitting boats anyway.
Yeah, the Saber was actually a turnkey. It's, if there ever is a real turnkey boat.
We updated some of the 80s wiring to make it ready for our electrical needs, but
it was a guy that, which a lot of those Sabers were. It was one of those that the guy just used it as a day sailor, pretty much. So it didn't have a lot of electronics, it didn't have a lot of toys on it, but it was phenomenally well kept, which was a great way to do it, especially for our first time out cruising. We spent 3 years cruising that boat, and we really did nothing to it. Everything was done ahead of time. All maintenance was handled, so it's just a great way to start that beginning.
So you were monohull sailors.
Yes.
Where did this whole catamaran idea come into play?
It's boats to us, as you can see, we change them fairly quick. They're a tool for a job. And we fall in love with them, of course. We love the Saber. The aluminum boat was with the intent of going into the Arctic, so it made sense to have a metal boat and a boat that was kind of designed for that type of cruising. So once we were done with that chapter, that boat was more than what was needed for like a trade-wind circumnavigation or the Med or anything like that. It just wasn't designed well for that type of climate. So now it was time to try something new, and we wanted to try catamaran.
Yeah. So how did you find this boat that you're building now? How did this all come about? Because I understand you're hull number 1, so I know there's a story there somewhere. So
we had narrowed the search down to 3 other companies actually, and they were basically flat panel kits. But one of the guys, actually Matt can tell it better, because one of the guys that was involved with the design that we're about to go with started up this new company that we did go with.
And we're probably not supposed to say anything about that. So that's supposed to be a behind the scene thing, but that's okay. But what really we started, Jess and I started looking at, when we were building the aluminum boat, we were also looking at catamarans too. And I always watch the market as to what's available. And so we had talked about refitting, doing another one where it's just a complete gut, bare hull refit. And it's fun. It's a great way to do it. It's a pretty inexpensive, if there is an inexpensive way of getting into a boat, it's an inexpensive way of doing it. But it comes with a ton of hassles and some headaches. So we quickly squashed the idea of rebuilding a boat, and instead decided that we wanted to build a new one. Once we started down that path, we're looking at a bunch of different kit boats, flat panels. A lot of Australian and South African designers specialize in these types of things. And so we looked at it, talked to a bunch of different builders, and the amount of time, when you really whittle it down and you find out what was the most frustrating part, or the most time-consuming part for these kit boats, it was fairing out the exterior. It was going through and sanding and more sanding, and trying to get that perfect paint job, and all the troubles that came to that. And the ones that we looked at, either they were absolutely spectacular, or they fell really short of being perfection, of being a well-built boat. They looked very amateurish. And so we wanted to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah.
And in talking to one of the manufacturers of one of the kits, he kind of whispered to us that, hey, I'm starting something new. I'm going to try something different. And he was coming up with this concept of making molded components that are shippable. They're individual pieces. So taking the whole of the hull and dividing that in certain key areas with kind of these overlapping flanges, things that are easy to bond together, and shipping that. Now ours is 42 feet long. It was in a 40-foot shipping container, 2 40-foot shipping containers actually. But so it's really that key was finding out where to have these joint lines and having these pieces come where it's the easiest to put together. They're in areas that are going to be well hidden. So when we're bonding them and fairing them and doing all that, it's a minimal amount of work. But the most important part was to make sure that they're in structural areas that are not seeing high loads. So that was a lot of that was going through, and just that engineering that went into it was incredible. We were lucky. I'm sorry.
Is this sort of like the world's most complicated IKEA bookcase?
Yes, that is exactly what we call it. That is exactly what we call it. It is just, it's such an interesting way of doing it, but it allows you to get something like an IKEA bookcase that once it's together, it looks professionally done. It looks like it was all constructed and shipped to you fully constructed. Unlike, trying to make your bookcase yourself, where you just have bare logs or whatever, which is the way you would normally do this type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so can you tell us about? I'm going to address Jessica for this one. Tell us about the boat, like the boat build site. What does it look like right now, or what has it looked like? Or you were just saying to me that you're wondering after daylight savings ends what your schedule is going to be like working on the boat, because you've been working on it till 6:30 at night. So
yes, we have been putting in long days. We work pretty much 7 days a week, unless something has taken us away. We do give ourselves vacations every now and then. But otherwise, we pretty much work from like 9 to 6 every day. And we fell into the perfect spot. We're on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay at a spot called Catamaran Marina. And off to the side, they have a tent that they would use for painting boats. And it is 50 feet long and 30 feet wide. Yep. It comes with lights and propane. So it's kind of like all set up to go all hours of the day. And we kind of thought that we would be to a lockup stage a little bit sooner, just so that we could like heat just the interior of the boat instead of the entire tent. And we're working toward it. But it's been such a great space for us. It gives us absolutely everything that we need. And just being here at Kentmore, the staff is fantastic. They're family to us now. Anything we need, especially being so close to Annapolis, the people here are amazing. So we couldn't think of a better build spot.
Yeah, we just kind of fell into this.
We did. We were going to start our search last year in the Carolinas and go kind of around Florida and through Texas. And yeah, we never got out of Maryland.
We came to visit a friend in Annapolis, and he goes, "Yeah, I've got a friend that owns a marina. Let me make a phone call," and the rest is history. Now we absolutely fall in love with this area.
Yeah, well, it's an awesome area. That's
especially for
that's
sailors.
why we're in existence.
Know.
It's a great place for sailors.
It was hard to keep ourselves working through the summer because there were so many wonderful distractions in the area.
Yeah, everyone wants to go sailing over the weekend, and it was hard to have to tell everyone, no, we're working.
Yeah. So so tell us kind of when this began and what your time frame, where you are in the process. Because I looked over your videos, but I don't remember the dates. All I know is I think, Jessica, when I saw in that one video when it's arriving, I think you're wearing a winter hat.
Yeah.
So I couldn't decide exactly when that was. And
full circle.
Yeah, it was the beginning of March. And so I think conditions were still a little harsh around here. It was actually close to freezing that day. So we were all bundled up. The wind was blowing pretty hard. For the timeline, the manufacturer gave us an estimate that it would take 14 months for 2 somewhat experienced builders working full time to complete. But having done the aluminum boat rebuild and starting our YouTube channel in that process, we kind of realized how much time that adds on to our daily schedule. We need to set cameras up to film things. Matt needs to excuse me every now and then so I can edit the videos. And so we kind of gave ourselves about a 24-month time limit, giving ourselves that 10-month cushion. And there were some supply shortages over the summer. A lot of materials that we needed were just running out of stock because, so many things are becoming shorthanded now. So we're hoping that 2 years from now, October ish of 2023, we'll be splashing the boat.
Yep, around the boat show is when
Around
we're planning
boat
to
show.
hopefully splash the boat.
She may not be completely finished, but she will at least get us maybe down to like Florida, where we can finish putting like deck hardware on and things like that, and rigging the boat.
And maybe a motorboat for the first couple of months.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have an audience question, so let's just bring it on. There's a question from Greg Guthman. How did you get started on YT Patreon, and what impact has this had, good and bad?
Do you want to go?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, exactly. What was the question? How'd you get started?
Hi, Greg.
Oh. Greg is one of our patrons.
Greg is one of our patrons. So, hi. So the question was, how did we get on YouTube and Patreon? We actually ran when we were building our last boat, when we were in Indian Town. Backstory, but before we were talking, before we started the live chat here, we were kind of discussing, we had watched, because when we started cruising, we left about the same time Delos did. We were doing a written blog at the time, and I couldn't figure out how they uploaded videos at all, because we had horrible service everywhere we went. We couldn't upload photos, and yet they were somehow posting videos. It wasn't until we got back to the US after 4 years or whatever it was, and we ran into a couple that called Monday Never. That was
Will and Kat.
Yep.
Monday Never.
Super nice people. In case you ever want to have other guests, YouTube guests, highly recommend them. But they had a YouTube channel at the time, and they came into the marina, and we sat and talked to them for a little bit. They're talking about the process of how they do it and how they upload. And things were rapidly changing throughout the Caribbean, throughout the world, where they're getting cell towers everywhere, and all of a sudden you can now stay a little bit better connected. And they finally talked Jess into doing YouTube.
People have been asking us for a year or two, and I just thought that it was going to be too time consuming, or because in our work yard, we had a couple of German guys that were doing a sailing adventure, but they actually had a show in Berlin, like a fully produced. So they spent a lot of time filming, and I just thought, we're building a boat right now. I can't let go of that much extra time for YouTube. But when we talked to Will and Kat on Monday Never, they kind of explained how it's like, how YouTube was like at the time, and it was much more low key. So eventually I picked up a camera and started filming what we were doing.
So we started that 2016, I think. And at that time, that was still kind of the Wild West days of YouTube, where just a cell phone camera and about 15 minutes was basically all you did. It was a pretty simple process. There wasn't a lot of editing done. And then that, of course, has changed now. So now it's 40 hours a week of editing, and it's a different world, and very, very expensive cameras.
I believe it was also Will and Kat that talked us into Patreon, because they had been using the platform for a few months. And if you've followed our written blog before, you'll know that we're very, very thrifty. We left with a certain amount of money in our bank account, and we wanted to hold on to that as long as possible to extend the adventure as long as we could. And so, they kind of explained Patreon to us. We didn't know too much about it. And we thought, well, hey, if this can even cover groceries every month or something, if that's one less thing out of our pocket, maybe it will let us stay out just a little bit longer.
Yeah, at the time we were cruising, we were spending about $1,200 a month, and that was a lot of that was check-in and exit fees, enter and exit fees from different countries. And so we were not spending a ton of money. So all we need to do is make just a little bit, and we can cover our actual living costs.
But I think we launched Patreon shortly with them, and within a few episodes of starting up YouTube, just to kind of see if there would be any positive feedback with it. So it has actually helped us now to continue the adventure, to be able to do this Catamaran.
So Patreon, I have to admit, I don't know what it is.
I didn't either until we started it.
It's a platform where people can support creators and artists based on the things they produce. And it can either be a monthly kind of subscription, or you can pay per creation, which is what a lot of the YouTubers will do. So for every video that's put out, someone will kind of contribute to that, and they get benefits in return. But it's really because many of the people we know that do it have canceled their television subscriptions. They don't get cable anymore. They use YouTube for their entertainment. So they're kind of like, hey, if I can give you, $10 a month, and this helps you stay out making videos and kind of like entertaining us here at home, then something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, you know, the world has changed so rapidly,
my
and,
God.
and I mean, I never thought that I would subscribe to certain services that I'm fully on board with now.
Yeah.
Of course, that's only $20 a month. I'm in. You know, it just
Yeah.
it's everything has changed in really rapidly, and so and it makes perfect sense to me. And I've talked to some other people whose subscription service is, you know, working for them because there are people dedicated who want access to their knowledge and access to their journey, and they are willing to pay for it, whether that's a little bit or, you know, whether it's like in that tithing, you know, donate a little here and there. And
for the longest time, it used to be, you know, everyone would write a book. They would cruise, and you know, they have the parties. I mean, you had all these different people that went out and they would write a book on it. And it was one of those things that at the beginning, we just did the written blog, and that's what we liked doing, and we liked reading about these things. Yeah. And now it's gotten to the point where it's YouTube.
Everything is videos.
Everything is videos. Everyone wants the video thing, which is great. I mean, it allows you to tell the story a little bit easier. It just portray things a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that we've gone rapidly from written books to blogs to now video YouTube things, just in the span of a couple of years.
When it's funny, I was just about to make a smart aleck remark that maybe it's not such a bad thing that not everybody is writing books, because as a magazine editor, I think, you know, some people really shouldn't write a book, but it actually applies to video too, doesn't it?
Oh,
it's a skill.
Of course. Yeah, it's but that's the beauty of the YouTube thing, is there's so many. I mean, the sailing channels now, there's well over 1,000 sailing channels, and so you can pick your poison. I mean, whatever you like, whatever niche. The sailing community and the cruising community is already such a small niche, and then you can divide that even further if you want something that is Arctic sailing, or you want something that's tropical, or, you know, a specific boat. If you have a lagoon catamaran, well, great, there's 10 channels to pick from that are sailing on different lagoon catamarans, so you can kind of
fun too, like with all of the channels out there, we help to push ourselves to become better at what we're doing. I mean, the quality of videos, you know, 5 years ago, for pretty much anybody that's still out there now, to what's getting produced at the moment, especially by some of the bigger channels, it's kind of like full production studio quality stuff. And so that makes me want to push myself to kind of get to that, you know, with all that free time I have after building the boat.
Well, and I'm just going to ask one more question about video until we shift back to talk about the catamaran build again. But you mentioned spending about 40 hours a week on video editing, and in my experience, that we all tend to underestimate what kind of time that's going to take to edit video. Do you know your sort of ratio of hours spent editing to what shows up in your video? So if you do a 20-minute video, how long it has taken you to do it on average?
I think we're getting better, especially with the build for filming, at least, that I don't have to sift through the footage and have most of it end up on the cutting room floor. If I don't put something in, it's usually just because I'm like changing positions and scenes. But that's because what we're doing is very structured and laid out. It was kind of different when we were cruising. But yeah, a lot of that time can just be kind of like going through your footage and trying to find the story and how to best tell it. And usually for a 20-minute video, it's about 35 to 40 hours. And some of it's simple things that, I mean, who knows, maybe I could help myself out by passing to an editor just to, you know, fix audio so that everything's at the same level, or take out like the background, kind of color grading, make sure that the yellow sun coming in our white tent doesn't make us look orange, you know, and just funny things like that.
Yeah, got it. All right, let's get back to the catamaran build. And by the way, for anyone who's just chiming in, we know that people come in and out of our program, our live programs. So we're talking to Matt and Jessica from MJ Sailing, and they're vloggers on YouTube, and they are building a catamaran. So why don't you tell us sort of where you are now, you know, sort of what you've built up to this point and what's left in front of you.
Oh, so much is left in front of us. And the Annapolis Boat Show, the sailboat show, really hammered that home. You know, it was amazing climbing in and out of these different boats and pointing out all the million different things we still need to do.
and what early
Yep.
stages we're still in.
Yep. Right now, we are currently in what we'd call just a bare shell. We have bulkheads. Majority of the bulkheads are actually structurally in place currently. We have the transom on. We have the bridge deck in place. Right now, we are dry fitting the decks themselves and the foredeck, and those will hopefully get bonded on in the next couple of days once the temperature jumps up, hopefully a few degrees here, so we can actually do that. We need to be above 60 degrees for that to work out. So that is about the stage. Everything, the boat is a foam composite, so it's Divinocell. It's a green, basically green foam. So right now, currently, everything inside the boat is green. Yeah, there's not a lot of contrast. There's not a lot of different colors or things to shoot well. Exterior is gel coated, so it's basically a finished product on the outside. We just have to, the seams where the pieces go together, we have to go through and fair and gel coat that.
But we're also starting to take some of like the furniture pieces and start installing shelves, and the bed up and the guest side forward is going down. So it's all changing shape very suddenly.
Very suddenly. It's like framing a house. We're going through the part where it's you're sitting there and you're seeing these rapid changes for the next couple of weeks, or the past 6 months basically have been fairly rapid changes where the boat looks dramatically different from a couple of weeks ago. We're quickly going to get to the point where it is fairing and sanding and doing the interior stuff. So we'll bounce around quite a bit for a lot of that's for the content for the video. But there's a lot to be done with the electrical, of course, mechanical. We're still trying to finalize our engine choice. We have 2 Yanmar diesels, 29 horsepower Yanmar diesels sitting there ready, but technology is changing. So we're investigating some of those different possibilities, a hybrid system. So there's a lot of different choices to be made. Basically, every waking hour is spent either building the boat, editing for Jess, or trying to research and try to decide what path we're going to take tomorrow or 6 months from now or a year from now. Trying to even figure out things like the rigs and hardware we're going to use, all those things.
So I hopped around through some of your videos, and one of them I can see that you're putting a layer of something on, and you're sort of side by side putting this layer of something on. Excuse my boat building technology, it's like you're wallpapering something like
totally. That's a very
like
accurate term.
It reminded me of something a friend's father said. He said, "Don't marry anyone until you have wallpapered a small bathroom with them." And I've thought about that because boats are kind of like the whole boat is like a small bathroom, really, in every project you do. And I wonder, have you guys? You've already done some refitting, so I know you guys are no strangers to a wrench and a paintbrush and everything. But have you learned a bit about physically your strengths and weaknesses in doing this type of work on a boat?
Yeah, we learned that I need to start lifting weights because I have 0 upper body strength. And I knew that going in that it was going to be an issue. I don't know why I haven't hit the gym, but
you need to do some push-ups or something. But no, that's it. Jessica's strength is she's phenomenal with getting in there and getting her hands dirty and not saying no, or I can't do this or anything like that. And
I'm really good with like the detailed, like mundane work that would just drive him insane because all I really need to do is just put in some earbuds and I can work for hours.
She's just absolutely incredible. So I'm much more of the technical side of it, figuring out how things go, and then I pass that along to Jess, who will then go in and follow me along and kind of make it happen.
Yeah.
Although
he is better at boat term peel ply. So as we're kind of like putting the fiberglass down in the areas that it might be seen, we want to try and keep it as like smooth as possible and have to use less fairing compound later. So he puts that stuff down because it has to be perfectly smooth. It can't have any wrinkles or air bubbles. And I get completely frustrated with it and I can't do it. So then I hand it off to him.
You do throw your hands on that.
I do.
That's about the only thing
the only thing I refuse to do.
Yeah, she's defeated by, but it's,
I have a feeling I would be the same way. You'd be like, honey, go edit some video.
We are.
Well, I make this perfect. Because I'd be like, it's fine.
Our strong suit is definitely the fact that we are we forget the bad times really quick. So we'll be frustrated in the moment. We'll be frustrated for the day, but at the end of the day, you know, once we've showered up and we're getting ready for bed or something like that, we look back at the day's progress, what we've done, and it's nothing but positive thoughts. So I think that's how we kind of get through
That's
this.
how we get through.
Yeah, is the fact that we forget the bad stuff almost instantly. It just kind of washes away.
We're a little delusional.
Yeah, a little delusional, I think is
Yeah. So I'm going to jump ahead a couple questions because one of our audience members just asked a question that is very similar to one I was going to ask. Hi, Dave Granada. Did the boat show inspire any changes to details you're going to incorporate into your build?
It cemented some of the ideas that we had. So we've been kind of bouncing around with different directions we wanted to go. How much wood veneer? It's all foam core. All the furniture is all foam core composite. But we are deciding: do you want to paint this, or do we want to veneer this and have some wood trim there?
Yeah. So that's kind of been the thing. Because it would be easier to veneer and trim most of it. And for a while, I thought that's the route I wanted to go on because that's how a lot of the production catamarans have been for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
But we started to get on a bit more of the kind of performance-ended boats, and they would kind of fare down the surfaces and then coat it with like a glossy paint. And it was just a very light Spartan, and I really liked that more than I thought I would. But that also entailed a lot more work for us. So.
Yeah. Well, as we've lived aboard boats permanently, we started off with the Sabre, which was gorgeous, beautiful teak interior, but it was in the tropics. It was pretty nice, but day in, day out, it was a little dark. And so the next step, when we went to the aluminum boat, we did all the furniture, so all the cabinetry and the settee and that kind of stuff. We did that in cherry. Beautiful wood, but the walls were all white, and trying to kind of reduce that and get it so it was a little bit brighter, and you didn't feel like you're down inside of a boat all the time. Because again, we're in a boat 365 days a year. We didn't want to feel like we were in a boat necessarily. Mm-hmm. And so that has now progressed. And since we're building a performance catamaran, a big heavy furniture doesn't really look appropriate in that. So you don't have big hardwood type of stuff. So we're now going actually a little bit more towards I don't want to call it sterile. It's not, but it's
Euro style.
European style. A little bit more like a house is set up type of thing, where you're relying on white walls, but you're relying on the fabric choices and the wood trim and accent colors and that kind of stuff are the direction there. So that's really the design end that we kind of finalized some of those things. A lot of it was really going in and looking at the mechanical side for me. And trying
that was going to be my question. How about electronics and stuff from the boat show?
Oh my gosh, it was so nice being able to go.
It is kind of a candy store for that sort of stuff, isn't it?
Oh, in the new technology, new things that are coming out, even things like the cleats, just random thing. But Antol has these new roller cleats that they don't snag things, and
when they're not in use, like they flip down, so it's just kind of like a U-shaped bar on your deck.
Yeah, they're gorgeous, ridiculously expensive, but gorgeous, and just little details like that. Looking at the rigging and all the things that you need. We foolishly went into this, and I don't know how we did this, but we should have learned the lesson last time we did the rebuild. But we foolishly went into this thinking that okay, we have these parts, the boat parts, and we're going to spend a year building that out and building out the furniture and stuff. We could ignore the mechanical side of it for the first year and just basically focus in on the actual structure of the shell of the boat. Well, it's all of the decisions, everything for the mechanical side needs to be made now, or needs to have made 6 months ago, because they impact everything else. And so we were frantically for the past 6 months going through and trying to decide layout for electrical system and all these different things. And a lot of that, again, was going aboard the Outremer and going aboard the balance catamarans and the HH and the kinetic and these performance cats, and seeing how they laid things out, the cheats that they did, the things that they did to lighten the weight, so they weren't doing just things for convenience. some of the ways that they ran wire, instead of running it through an additional set of conduits, having individual conduits for each thing, they kind of ran it through a large conduit setup, which allowed you to lose some weight. I'm trying to think of other things like the plumbing setup. And just there's a lot of really clever ideas, things that I hadn't thought of. Yeah.
I mean, some of it was just aesthetics, some of it was technical.
It's the beauty of the boat show. You go through and you look at these boats that you normally can't climb in and out of. We were able to do that, and we were able to talk to these different vendors that are all showing the new things.
But it kind of also made us realize how shallow our pockets are and how you'll never be able to get all of the things that we do want.
You spend some time. I've sailed on an HH catamaran before, and you spend some time on one of those, and you think, oh.
Yeah.
This is available to some people.
I know.
It's cool, but
it was amazing, the fit and finish on that boat. And the fact that it had been actively cruised, I think, for a little over a year now, and everything was perfect. I mean, there wasn't a flaw to be seen on that boat. And it was just, I can't imagine how many hours they spent going through and fairing everything and getting it to that point. And the fact that it was durable too. The fact that they've been cruising it, they've been out and up and down the East Coast and through the Bahamas and maybe even the Caribbean with it, and there wasn't the wear and tear that you get on a lot of other boats.
Yeah, it's fun to tour those boats. That one in particular, I know the owners are deeply involved in things like, we really want an outdoor shower right here, and this is one that's like rain, like they can figure that stuff out and build it into their boat, and that's really cool. And so, I mean, you guys can do that too to a certain extent.
Exactly. We just have to, we have to make very clever use of the materials on hand to make something like that happen. Just because of the fact, we can't throw a big budget at it. We have to just try to make Home Depot run and go and grab a shower head, and hopefully we can make that work.
So you're building a catamaran from the ground up. There have to be, I mean, with anyone who's building a boat, whether it's a catamaran or a monohull or anything, there just have to be these moments where you think, what were we thinking? So that's my question. What are you thinking?
Well, as Matt said, luckily you've got kind of like short-term memory for the bad things. There are sometimes we find ourselves saying, we're never doing this again. We're never going to build another boat.
Yeah.
But that's just because the solution isn't, right in front of you at the moment. But then you figure it out and you get through it, and just like the sense of accomplishment and pride. And that's just for, little things right now. I can't wait until it is
we actually launch the boat.
Because I still look at photos of our aluminum rebuild, and I look at that and I'm just like, wow, like we took that down to a hole and built that back out. And so, we we forget the bad things, but there are definitely those moments where we're just kind of like tearing our hair out.
And that's the amazing part is, so we went through the rebuild of the aluminum boat, which is just was saying, we stripped it to this bare hull on the inside and outside. We joked that we left a bilge pump switch and I think the mast were like the only two things.
And like half of a bulkhead.
Half of a bulkhead. All the rest was all brand new, and so we went through all that. And there was a lot of hard times, a lot of frustration in that. But looking back at it, all we really remember are the good stuff. And that's why when we were talking about building or refitting a boat, Jess is the one that actually talked me into it. She went through and went, we had a great time. It was an awesome feeling getting each little. It's just full of wins. So every single day you finish up and you've accomplished something and you feel like you've won. And that feeling is just not something you can duplicate anywhere else. It's such a great feeling.
For myself,
when you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know I usually get the feeling, instead of looking at the build in the 2 to 2.5 years we have before she's completely finished and we're sailing away, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I still have so much to go, like I haven't done all of this, I look at what we did that day and like, oh my gosh, like now we're one step further ahead than we were yesterday.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, and I can't help myself. I'm just sort of like the Oprah of Facebook Live, but as you guys have had the relationship test of cruising, thousands of blue water miles together and that sort of adventure. How does this adventure of building a boat compare as a relationship test to cruising?
I think we were lucky having done the aluminum boat refit that we really learned to communicate then, instead of just kind of like holding it in and then exploding. And like we had to kind of say like, this is what's bothering me. This is what you can do about it. So that translated into our second round of cruising.
Much better.
Much better. The first time we were out in the Sabre, it was a little tough because
sometimes
we're kind of like learning to live in a tight space.
Well, it's all of a sudden being 24/7 with your spouse, you know. It is, and we're lucky enough that we've been together since we were 17. She's basically all I know, and vice versa. Yet even then, when you're thrown into cruising, where you're around that same person 24/7, doesn't matter who it is, there is some chaos, I guess we'll call it. That's probably a nice way to put it. But it was just when we started that build, learning to communicate properly with each other and not hold anything in, and then spending your day trying to make the other person happy, and vice versa. It just worked out extremely well for us. And then again, like you said, when we started cruising again, it just was the perfect recipe. So we everything. We were a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. And I think it helped us accept some of the other person's like shortcomings, because there are some things that people just have ingrained in them that are never going to change. And so instead of expecting people to change, and this is for both of us, instead of expecting that person to change their behavior, you make allowances for that. And so I mean, because like sometimes like when he can't figure something out right away, like he will kind of get frustrated, and there'll be like 5 minutes of like anger coming out of him, and then like 10 minutes later he's fine. And so like I don't get upset about it, because I know 10 minutes later it's gonna be fine.
She just kind of walks away and gives me my time to vent, and then comes back and
he knows that like I'm a daydreamer, so he kind of like needs to like sit down, explain it to me a few times, and then I'll pay attention.
So I have two more questions, and I'm watching the time because we're getting toward last call, but one of them is, when you're done with this boat, you expect that to be in a year, right?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years from now. You guys got us local for 2 years.
That's good. We'll just keep interviewing you as you move along. Maybe next time we'll be a little better at bringing up visuals so people can see where you are on the boat. But we also want them to go to your YouTube channel too. So go check it out on MJ Sailing, because they have lots of great videos to check out where they are. But what are you going to do when you get that boat on the water? Like, what's your ultimate goal sailing wise, cruising wise?
A lot of people ask us about the South Pacific, and I think we will eventually get there. But having been out 2 times now in the like kind of like North Atlantic and the Caribbean, it still feels like there's so much more to see in those areas. We've tried twice to get into the Mediterranean, and each time we get close, we end up buying a boat back in the States and heading back to it. So I think we're going to do a shakedown in the Caribbean for like the winter of 23, 24, and then do an Atlantic crossing and try and get into the Mediterranean. We definitely want to get up to the Baltic Sea, because that was our intent with the aluminum boat, but because of lockdowns, we didn't get in there. And that's about as far as we can plan. We've learned, like 2 years out is about as far as we can go, because plans are going to change. They always do.
Yeah, we've been on every single time we've had her parents fly in. We've been on a completely different continent by the time they flown in. It's just the way cruising works.
Yeah, I bet your families are happy to have you on land in the same place for a while, so that they sort of, are able to visit you or know where to find you and all that sort of thing.
It's been amazing. I feel so bad. Her parents like to plan things out way too far in advance, and they have yet to learn that they need to basically buy last-minute flights to come visit us.
You can pick a place or you can pick a time, but you can't pick both.
Yeah.
Sailors all over the world are frustrating their families.
Oh, absolutely. Nowadays,
their strange way of planning, our unique way of planning.
Exactly. And now, it's hard to have an excuse for at least not keeping up to date with all the technology, all the different ways we have of connecting. But still, it's hard sometimes, and you're in completely different time zones, and trying to relay to the family. That's kind of the nice thing with doing the videos too, is the fact that at least they can keep up with that type of stuff and see the things that we're actually seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been good with connecting through satellite phones on passages, but we do have to let them know that, like, if you don't hear from us for 2 days, you probably just can't get a signal. Please do not call the Coast Guard, which has happened.
Yeah, my mom got a little freaked out the first couple of times that we weren't responsive to emails, and tried to explain to her, if she gets a phone call from the Coast Guard, then something bad has happened. Until that point, don't worry.
So my last question is, what would you recommend to someone who maybe has it in their back of the mind? I should build a boat, and I could make that happen. What would be your advice to them?
Okay,
He's probably going to build online. I would say absolutely do it, because, I mean, if you have the desire and if you're willing to work for it, but at the same time, I would say, if it's possible, go cruising for maybe a year first, because you need to know what you're working toward.
Yeah.
During our aluminum boat, if we hadn't done the 3 years sailing that we had prior, it would have been so easy to walk away, but knowing the end goal is what kept us going.
Yeah, and that's really, they always, the advice that we've heard before we went cruising the first time is to not outfit the boat with all the toys on it until we know what we actually want. So get out there and use what we have, and then decide the things that we want. And it was that knowledge that we had of cruising previously that we put into the aluminum boat, because at that point we knew even on passage, we knew where we grabbed for handholds. So we'd watch each other and see where we'd grab. So then when we built out the aluminum boat, we knew exactly where to place different things. Instead of having them overhead, where neither of us grab overhead, we knew to grab and have fiddles in different areas.
Like where we normally found ourselves on passage, how we kind of spent our downtime on the boat. We weren't really cockpit people, so having a fully outfit cockpit for just lounging wasn't really necessary for us.
So it was basically, that would be my advice: just go out cruising first, get a feel for it, figure out exactly what you want, then build. And the other thing too is make sure that you want to actually build a boat. If you just want the
not a small thing,
don't do it. Yeah, you got to know that you actually want to be in this process of building, because it's hard to justify the amount of time spent doing this, and some of the frustrations and the highs and lows, the ups and downs.
You run into a lot of roadblocks. You have to be prepared for that.
Yep. So you better be a mechanical, logical person, and you better have that want to actually do this. Otherwise, buy a boat and maybe do a little refit and get that out of your system, and then go cruising.
Yeah. And that's super solid advice. I love that advice. And so now that we're past last call, maybe you could just tell people how to find you, how to reach you, where to find you on your social channels and whatnot.
Okay. We have a YouTube channel. Yeah, a YouTube channel. I swear this is my first beer. Called MJ Sailing. So you can find us there. But our handles for Facebook and Instagram, if you do a search of MJ Sailing, you should probably be able to find us. Otherwise, it's at mattandjessicasailing.com. We publish videos every Sunday, so stay up to date on there. And you can always go back through our previous 200 videos to see what we've done up to this point.
All right. That's great. Sharp, are you coming back?
I'm here.
Yeah. Hey, there you are.
Gotten awfully dark.
No, it is getting dark.
There you go.
I'm glowing by the light of the iPad over here.
I don't need one of those fancy lights over the screen. I just turn the brightness up.
There you go.
And there you are, the blue glow.
Yes.
Well, you guys, it was so nice having you on the program. I hope you will come back. And
absolutely.
Because we only have so many topics here on the SpinSheet Happy Hour. So we do find that when people come back that we are able to sort of deepen our conversation with them. And
absolutely. Well, next time we'll have you remote and have you out to the build site.
Actually, that would be super fun.
There you go.
Yeah, good. And we will bring something warm with which to mix our rum.
Hey, there we go.
Sounds like a plan.
If their Wi-Fi is good in the hangar there, maybe we'll do live.
We'll figure something out.
I think. Jessica,
All right.
Matt, it was really great to talk to you and catch up with you. Thank you. Thank you for being on the program. And Sharba is probably going to put us in the green room and stick around because we're having a little after party in the green room.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank
Awesome.
you
Thank
so
you
much.
guys.
Always. All right. We'll see you in a bit. And that's it for SpinSheet Happy Hour, everybody. Really appreciate you tuning in. We do this once a month. Go and like our Facebook page and like our YouTube channel, and you'll get updates when our next one is coming, and it'll tell you the topic and everything. Also, go and like and subscribe to MJ Sailing. Really great of them to join us, and we'll have them back, and we'll figure out or find out how well that boat's going. So, again, another thank you to Mount Gay Rum for sponsoring this. Without them, we can't do this. And thank you for tuning in, because if you didn't, nobody would do this. So anyway, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.